the beginning of day one. Merfolk may be a solution to the Eldrazi metagame. We're going to see just how it plays out.
Yep, not playing the Michael Majors list. He's got the Spreading Seas, has a Master of Waves, no Reflector Mage.
And we saw there was a lot of game here on the Merfolk side. So we start. Aaron Reed, he'll be on the play, starts on a basic island. For Carpenter, no 2-mana land. It's just a Flooded Strand.
So neither player has the ideal start. No Vial for Reed, no 2-mana land for Carpenter.
And he'll play Cavern Naming Merfolk. Got Silvergill Adept revealing a Curse Catcher. Aaron will draw a card. I have to think he picked up that Curse Catcher maybe this turn.
Yeah, probably would have played that one on turn 1.
Not many curses to catch here. Carpenter playing Path to Exile and Dismember. That's about it in the main deck.
Yeah, most of the strength of Curse Catcher is just hinged on the fact that when you have it on turn 1, as you play more Lords, it scales really well. It's already in play and can attack with those new pumps.
So maybe it's good enough for 5 damage over the course of a game.
Right.
Could play Moth Dust Changeling. That would work too. Go over to Bradley Carpenter. He will Dismember the Silvergill Adept. That's a lot of life to pay for that, but he wants to keep the board clean.
Yeah, this is not the first time we've seen a Dismember on an Adept this weekend.
I have Ugin the play for Carpenter. He makes a Endless One on 3.
Yeah, with no Lord on turn 2, the 3/3 Endless One should be good for at least a couple turns here.
And if you're watching here, Carpenter's on a mulligan to 4 right now.
That's awkward.
Yeah, it's a Lord of Atlantis from Aaron Reed. And I noticed that because he played the Endless One, I said, that's just 2 cards left in his hand. So,
oh, geez.
As soon as it's Endless One, it will be a Vapor Snag to put the Endless One back into Carpenter's hand.
That's a tempo play that I wouldn't necessarily like if Carpenter had a bunch of cards in hand. But given the fact that all he has is Endless Ones, I mean, it's just going to come back as a 4/4. Not super different than the 3/3.
Now I'm interested here, does Bradley Carpenter fetch an island into the Lord of Atlantis? He does.
Yeah, not going to be able to block.
Didn't actually have a choice. They only have 4 fetchable lands. It's 2 Hallowed Fountains, a Plains, and an island. So if he wanted to use that Flooded Strand, Brad has to pay a big price here.
Yep, you want to get the blue source for the Genre of Hope, but the downside is already on the table.
So here's the 4/4 Endless One, slightly more endless than before. Life totals 13 on Brad's side and a full 20 on Aaron's. And here is the Master of Waves, creating 3 elemental tokens. Saw this card be a heavy lifter early on. Eldrazi does not have many answers. It has these 7 spells, and without that, it's going to have trouble beating through Master of Waves.
Right. Reed is going to want to find another Island Walk Lord. Just because the Master of Waves was previously the only unblockable creature in play.
Hallowed Fountain is land here from Brad. Just passes. He had
Carpenter attacked with an Endless One like I need my 2 elemental tokens there, and Carpenter just figures this game is only going to go worse as it progresses.
How about another Master of Waves? Carpenter does not want to play on. Game 1 over to the Folk and Aaron Reed.
Yeah, this is what people call the deck, the Folk.
It's just the Folk. It's short for Merfolk.
Right. It's
just Folk.
It's a name that just makes you feel really comfortable.
What are you playing? I'm playing the Folk. Let's look at some sideboard options. Aaron Reed, Vapor Snag actually looked very good that game. He has 2 more copies in his sideboard. 4 Hurkyl's Recalls, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 2 Gutshot, 2 Negate, and 3 Tidebinder Mage. Vapor Snag seems good. Do we like anything else?
Gutshot, there's an argument for it to deal with Eldrazi Mimic to stop yourself from just getting run over. We do know that these blue-white Eldrazi decks, they have those worships on the sideboard, so there's an argument for Negate. It's not very good, but you might just need it.
Right, so you think a mono blue deck should be well insulated against an enchantment, right? They can counter it, they can bounce permanents. Well, Merfolk's an aggro deck, and that's not always the case. So then the question is, we go to Brad Carpenter's side, does he board in worships here?
Yeah, so his gut shots are a lot worse than Aaron's. They can never kill a Lord, so they're really not serving a purpose that is especially meaningful in the matchup.
Well, he did dismember a Silvergill Adept. I guess you can Gutshot it.
You would rather Gutshot it, you're absolutely right, though that's just not what we want to be doing with our removal spells. Keeping the Dismember in also just makes sense because it can actually tag Master of Waves. Gutshot.
Yeah, I know, it wants to kill Master of Waves so badly.
Right. That's a very awkward matchup.
Right, it's still a red card, even though Brad makes no intention of paying red mana for it.
Yeah, so just kind of looking at the main deck, a big question for the Worship is there anything that Brad wants to board out? Path to Exile and Dismember both seem great here. All of the creatures are just, they're the engine for your deck. He's clearly looking at cards. I assume that the Worships are coming in.
I would think so. They seem pretty good.
Yeah. Maybe trim some of your top end, possibly something like the Drowner of Hopes, or even just the Endless ones. They're kind of anemic. They're less impactful in the ability to just tap creatures with the Drowner or go off with the combo of Displacer and Drowner.
One thing Brad will try to do is he'll try to sideboard some extra cards into his opening hand. Only 4 cards really got him bet down there. As they get ready for game 2, we're going to take a second to tell you about Star City Games Game Night. Promotion started over a year ago. What this is, if you haven't heard about it, is tournaments held all around the country at your local game store. They can make a night a StarCityGames.com game night. So what that means is you can get exclusive tokens and pins for whatever your weekly tournament is. Could be Standard, Modern, Commander, Pauper, Draft.
Vintage.
I don't know. Oh, that'd be interesting, Vintage.
But you have to own power.
Computer-generated Momir Basic. I think you could do that. That'd be interesting. Anyway, for February, our promo was Magus of the Moo. That's the pin you see on our coats here. Next month, you can get ready to get a copy of Grim Llamamancer. It's a good pun. Like that one. He's a 3/1 elemental, which, all right. I'm okay with that. And next month, this is the greatest one. If you sign up now, you get in time for the Slobberin' Mile Driver. This is everyone's favorite puppy or goblin. Get this one on tokens and pins for StarCityGames.com game night.
That's my favorite kind of wordplay, are the huge reaches.
Just
when it's very obvious that somebody tried to put that together. You didn't just wake up and say, oh, Slobberin' Mile Driver, we could do that one. Somebody was like agonizing, scrunching their forehead, staring at a chalkboard, like, what do I do with these card names? And they came up with that after hours of drinking coffee and staring at that board.
And like, then once you come up with it, you're like, this is a keeper. This is a keeper, everyone.
We broke it. We got the Slobberin' Mile Driver.
Roll out the printing press.
Everyone looks at them like they're crazy because they haven't slept for 4 days and they're yelling Slobberin' Mile Driver.
SCG takes our game night promos very seriously. It's just Brian Braun doing before, locked in a room coming up with puns.
Locked in a room with a Keurig and endless supply of Doritos.
All right, going back to game 2. Brad Carpenter on the play. Can he get a better keep? We have seen before the fast, aggressive draws from yesterday from Eldrazi were good enough to win by and large. The double, like a Mimic, even one Mimic into a turn 3 Thought Knot was pretty hard for Merfolk to race. Now, when he didn't have the fast draws, they got overpowered.
Absolutely, and it's a bit awkward timing to say this right after we saw Carpenter mulligan to 4 and not play much of a game, but the Eldrazi deck is generally pretty forgiving on mulligans. If you have a hand that's not running your opponent over, you can afford to at least go to 6, looking for those double lands, the soul lands, as it were.
Brad Carpenter will be on the mulligan. This can be such a difficult spot, especially when you lose game 1 to what is perceived as a mulligan. It can, as much as you know it shouldn't, it can really affect your decisions going forward. Yeah. Hopefully for Brad, it won't.
Yeah, this is not his first time playing for top 8 on the SCG tour, so I assume he's a pretty level-headed player. See him keep on 6 here, scry card to the bottom. Reed, of course, has kept his 7 once again, so...
One thing about the folk deck, it is consistent.
Haven't seen a Vial from Reed yet, though. That's usually all of the best draws, but game 1 he drew Curse Catcher on turn 2.
Hallett Fountain for Carpenter into a turn 2, looks like, Spellskite. And once again, Carpenter has played an island for Aaron. Spellskite here, what are your thoughts? I can't imagine it's high on his list. Maybe he keeps it in because there's only so much he can do.
Right, it can catch Vapor Snag and Dismember. That can be a big deal. Right now, with just Cavern, Hallowed Fountain, he can't cast any of his big Eldrazi yet. So that will be live when we start casting Thought-Knot Seers and Reality Smashers.
Silvergill Adept drew a card there, turn 2. Has another Curse Catcher in hand.
Yes.
See, Eldrazi displays there for Brad Carpenter, but this is the scary game, and we saw day 1. These are the games that Merfolk were winning. When Aaron got to enter, or the Merfolk player got to enter turn 3 at 20 life, you didn't see the Eldrazi deck come back very often.
This also is not what Brad wants to be doing in any match. We have not seen him play a Temple or an Ayavugan, so he just has 3 lands that tap for 1 mana at this stage in the game.
2-drop here from Aaron. He will dismember the Spellskite. Now below 20, he'll go down to 16. Master of the Pearl Trident was the play. His creatures pump up to a 3-2 and a 2-2. Actually, he actually dismembered the Eldrazi Displacer, which Brad allowed.
I was starting to wonder if Brad might have been sitting on an Eldrazi land, just because if he couldn't use the mana, it could be susceptible to a Spreading Seas, but it looks like he's still just on the 4th non-Eldrazi land.
You said this before, the Eldrazi decks, the hands without Eldrazi lands in them are often unplayable.
Yeah, and Brad went down to 6, but this might be one that I'd be pitching to 5.
Lord of Atlantis for Aaron, and Brad, we mentioned before on turn 1, he helped Aaron out by playing an island. None of these creatures are blockable, and they're all bigger. Aaron will dismember. I'm a little confused on that one. Maybe Aaron has missed the fact that Brad has played an island for him.
It's possible. I was just going to say that it doesn't matter if creatures are blockable because Aaron's just going to kill all the Carpenter's stuff anyway.
All right, here's a dismember on Master of the Pearl Trident. Brad goes to 16. I think he may have 2 dismembers. But he can't do the second one. There's a Curse Catcher on the board.
Right, you'd be paying 4 life to kill the Curse Catcher.
Curse Catcher, the secret Spellskite. Brad goes down to 11. Plays a 5th land. This Eldrazi deck, when you have to play fair with your mana, it's less impressive, Ryan.
You make a very compelling and interesting point.
When you're in Reality Smashers on turn 5, not necessarily turn 4.
Or you just have 5 lands that tap for 1 and just nothing to do with your mana.
Harbinger of the Tides from Aaron Reed. He's going to bounce Eldrazi Mimic. This is a card that we've seen do a lot of work in the matchup. Another Curse Catcher from Reed, and now here's a swing.
It looks like we're seeing that second dismember happen here, but it's going to cost 3 life because of the Key of the Coilos, so that's something.
I was going to say, I like that play. It's techie. I don't think it's going to win in the game, but good find.
Not paying a life when he doesn't have to, so you know.
Dismembers the Lord of Atlantis, so he'll only take 3 and 3 from himself, so 6 total.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad turn. I mean, played it the way he needed to, but he just doesn't have any options here.
These decks with great nut draws like Blue-White Eldrazi sometimes can mulligan out of games. Brad was unfortunate enough to have it happen twice in a game and have it happen when it hurt the most.
I think this is a story of 2 different things happen. So Brad is obviously going to be upset that he had to mulligan to 4 and play a non-game in Game 1. And in Game 2, he's going to be wishing that he went to at least 5.
Aaron Reed 2-0 defeats Brad Carpenter, and with that win, he will lock his spot in the top 8. The Folk notching a spot in the top 8.
We have at least 3 non-Eldrazi decks now.
Better than the Pro Tour.
Yes.
All right.
The format is solved. We beat him.
Well, to be fair, so